April, I'm just waiting to see if we're live.
Yes, you are live now, Mr. Mayor. You can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, we don't have the red box around us anymore, huh?
It says still pre-live on my screen.
It does appear to be live on my end. We can check with ICT on that.
Okay. It's November 24th, colleagues, and we're here for I guess every meeting these days is a special meeting. This is a special meeting. It was unscheduled. It's been added for the very specific reason of the Rapid Housing Initiative. So welcome to Council. We'll begin by seeing who we have with us around the virtual table, beginning with Councillor Daigle-Gamelin in District 1.
Present, Mr. Mayor.
Awesome. Councillor Hensby.
President accounted for, sir.
Awesome. Councillor Kent.
I am here, Mr. Mayor.
Awesome. Councillor Purdy. Working with her. Okay. Councillor Austin, District 5.
President accounted for, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Mancini.
I'm here, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, colleagues.
Councillor Mason.
Here in District 7, Mr. Mayor, ready to go.
Councillor Smith.
I'm here, and if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make a quick acknowledgement of the sad passing of George Finley. Many of you know George Finley from the Forum Association, 31 years as chair, and only recently did he decide to walk away and pass the reins on. And unfortunately, about a week or so ago, he passed away at the age of 94, I believe. And if you know George, you know he was very opinionated, but also a guy who had a very warm heart, really cared about the community. So I just want to take this moment to acknowledge his passing and his contribution to our city and the community.
Yeah, I guess it's true to say that he was a legend in many, many ways. To his family, we wish them the very best. Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you. Councillor
Cleary.
Hello, thank you, Your Worship, from District 9, although it does look like I'm in front of Ollivanders in Diagon Alley. That was my background from my last meeting, and now that I'm in this meeting, it won't seem to go away. So if someone from ICT could know how to go all the way down my choice, because it won't let me hit the apply or preview button. So hi from Diagon Alley.
Thank you. Councillor Morse.
I'm present, but not in Diagon Alley.
All right. Councillor Cuddle, are you with us?
Oh, you're muted, Patty.
There we go. Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, from District 11.
Thank you. Councillor Stoddard.
Present, District 12. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lovelace.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, colleagues. Happy to be here in District 13.
Thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor. Guess I stop saying that soon. Deputy Mayor Blackburn. Not hearing the Deputy Mayor. All right. Can't hear the Deputy Mayor. Okay. Councillor Russell.
Hello from wonderful Lower Sackville, where we have this store in Lower Sackville called Urban Rustic, where you can go and build a thing for Christmas, a plank, a snowman, or whatever, and they will help you build it, or you can take the parts home and build it at home yourself. It's a unique idea for Christmas, so check out Urban Rustic when you come to Lower Sackville next. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Outhet.
Hello, Mayor from Bedford Wentworth. I just very quickly want to thank the Light Up Bedford Parade Committee, Dexter Construction, HRM Parks, HRP, and Scott Robinson, who took Santa on a 42-kilometer tour of Bedford by Jeep on Sunday evening with me in a police car hitting the siren and having great fun. But I tell you, all those happy faces to see Santa in the back of a Jeep waving to them, and I've had nothing but incredible feedback on the tree and on this parade. So I just wanted to reach out and shout out to those folks for helping bring a little happiness to Bedford Wentworth. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Purdy, are we sorted away with you yet? No, we're not. And Deputy Mayor? Oh, that's blueberry.
Check, test 1, 2. Can anyone hear me now?
We got you. We got you.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
All right. From the bunker in Beaverbank.
Beautiful downtown Beaverbank, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Outfit mentioned the Santa Claus on a Jeep. One of the sad things about COVID is, of course, we're not having a whole lot of festive events. I know that different business improvement districts are doing different things. I was conversing with Tim the other day in downtown Dartmouth. I can tell you they put up a beautiful tree here, much nicer than the one they had in Cincinnati, outside of my window. We will be having a virtual lighting, but to Mike Gillette and to all the folks, and I don't know if any of you realize we have a worker who is actually an elf who goes up and makes sure that the lights and everything are done and does a great job. So to our folks, keep an eye out on that. We obviously are not going to bring people down to City Hall for a lighting, but there's some very cool stuff planned here that people can come and enjoy at their leisure and keep social distance. All right. I do want to say, I think Ian McLean, you're going to be with us today, our new clerk.
Yes, I am, Mayor Savage. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so most of you may not have met Ian yet. There he is. In spite of that wonderful name, Ian McLean, and that Tony Mancini lookalike, in spite of all those things, he's not from Cape Breton. He is Albertan through and through, I think, and has been the Director of Elections and Census for the City of Edmonton. He's worked in the clerk's office there in a variety of increasingly responsible positions. Before that was clerk in the great city of Wetaskiwin as well. And he has joined us and is, I know, allowing his wonderful staff to sort of teach him as he goes along, and it'll be a great two-way street. So Ian, on behalf of all of us, we welcome you to Halifax. I know you're still self-isolating until I think the end of the week.
You betcha.
Yeah, but all of us at council, let's have a round of applause for Ian and for the wonderful folks at the clerk's office. All right. Good to have you, brother. Okay, I wanted this time to make special mention of the wonderful deputy mayor that we've had here for the last year. Been quite a year, deputy. In many ways, you haven't had the opportunity to be deputy mayor in the way that some others have. On the other hand, you came on at a time that responsibility and leadership was required, and you've provided that leadership to all of us. I don't think it's any secret, even to the new councillors, that we've referred to Lisa as our favorite councillor. Now, some of you will give her a run for her money, but none of the old guys are even close. So Lisa's been somebody I've come to rely on, and I think all of council have. She has only been with us 4 years, but she's got a tremendous amount of experience and has been, I think, in her own way, a mentor to many of us who've been in this job even longer than she has. And I want to thank you, Lisa, Deputy Mayor, Lisa Blackburn, for the great leadership that you provided to this city, the great leadership you will continue to provide to this city. And every year you make a bigger mark, and we appreciate that. And we appreciate you. And thank you very much for your service as Deputy Mayor.
Well, thank you so very much. It's been an absolute honor to serve as deputy mayor this year. It's been an incredible experience. You're right, certainly fewer ribbon cuttings and flag raisings, but what I did get was a crash course on crisis management and crisis communications. And more importantly, I got an inside look at how well our team of managers were able to reimagine service delivery during a pandemic. And, I also learned that how a cohesive team can do the near impossible, because I saw it this spring. I also learned how much our mayor and our senior leadership care about this city and its residents. So thank you so much for the honor of serving as your deputy mayor. To the incoming deputy mayor, I'm going to pass this along to you. Now, the previous DM passed this on to me, so I am continuing the tradition. Now, in typical 2020 fashion, this parking pass it's a little faded. The expiry date is up, but we'll fix it up and we'll get it ready for a better 2021. So thank you very much.
That was cool. I'd like to get one of those parking passes, Lisa, if you have an extra one. I'll take an expired one if I have to. Last thing I would say is that during COVID, early when COVID broke, and Jacques, who's on the call, is obviously very well aware of this, but Lisa and I joined those calls, which were 8:30 in the morning, every morning, weekly, getting updates and learning about how hard everybody was, really and truly, how effective everybody was dealing with this crisis from a city point of view. And sometimes things changed on a dime, Lisa. Sometimes we didn't have a lot of notice that we had to do certain things. They always got done. And my senses tell me we're heading back a little bit into that time. But, we've learned from the first time. And hopefully we'll move on. So thank you very much, Lisa. Amazing work. We're now going to choose a new deputy mayor, and I'm going to ask for nominations. And I believe that Tony Mancini, Councillor Mancini, is going to put the nomination forward.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's with great pleasure that I would like to nominate for the position of Deputy Mayor Councillor Tim Outhit from District 16.
Second.
That's seconded by Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Mancini, did you want to justify?
A few words. Yeah, justify my decision. Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor Blackburn. We have 7 new colleagues around the virtual table that may not necessarily know Tim. So I'll give you a little background on Tim. He was first elected to council in 2008. I think Lindell was 6 at the time. He has a strong business background, and he applies that business experience on a day-to-day basis to his position and to the municipality. When I work with Tim, all I see is professionalism, respect, and a strong work ethic. And one of the things I really like about Tim, he truly understands that we are all regional councillors. It's just not about our district. Of course, our districts are important to us, but he truly understands that the decisions we make at regional council very often are impact districts outside of our own district. And in the role of the deputy mayor, that's really important to know. That role of deputy mayor is to assist our mayor. And if you don't really understand how busy Mayor Savage is, serve as deputy mayor and see his schedule is truly insane. And he has difficulty in saying no. So if he trusts the deputy mayor, that deputy mayor will be his right-hand person. So I have no doubt that Tim would do an outstanding job. One of the other things I like about Tim is that we all are proud of our families and our children. But I can't think of anybody who's more proud of his girls than Tim. When I say his girls, his amazing wife, Sandra, his talented and beautiful children, Elizabeth and Emily. When Tim talks about his girls, you see the pride in his face. He wears it on his sleeve, and the only person he's probably more proud of is his 4-legged child, Oben. But colleagues, I hope you support me in supporting Tim. I think he'll do an outstanding job, and it'll be a wonderful year with Tim as the mayor's right-hand person. Oh, by the way, let's get the elephant out of the room. You realize, colleagues, if he becomes our deputy mayor, truly means he's going to have a bigger forum for his dag jokes, and those dag jokes are pretty bad. So, as long as you understand that, Mr. Mayor, the floor, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blackburn, still for another few minutes. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blackburn. Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to cease nominations. Thank you, Councillor Lovelace. Seconded by Councillor Russell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I then declare that our deputy mayor for the upcoming year will be the White Shadow, Tim Outfit. Deputy Mayor, did you wish to say a few words, Deputy Mayor Outfit?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
I'm not one for saying much, of course. And Tony, listen, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Tony and I have a lot in common. I think we're both very proud of our children and our librarian wives and our dogs. So now Spirit isn't quite as nice as Olden, but he's okay. But no, listen, thank you very much. And I'm so excited to learn that I'm going to get an expired and faded parking permit. I can honestly say I don't have one of those. And but seriously though, this, and I said this to a number of you recently in person and also to you in a note yesterday, I am really excited about this new council. Yes, we're going to have our challenges and our opportunities, and we may have a bit of a second wave and things to deal with and budget times coming up. But when I look around this table and when I talk to you, I am so intrigued and so excited about this council, your enthusiasm, your energy, your background and priorities, and it's just going to be a really exciting time. And if I can do anything to help with that, as well as help you, Mayor, certainly, that's why I'm doing this. And I'm just really looking forward to an exciting year and getting to know all these new faces. So thank you very much for your kind words and your support, and I will try not to let you down.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You should be aware that parking permit is only good at the Dollarama at the Bedford Place Mall, but you can try to park out in front of City Hall too. All right, we have a Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much, folks. All right, I guess we're not going to have to go to the Survey Monkey for this one. Let's move to the approval of the order of business. Does somebody wish to approve the order of business?
So
moved.
Councillor Mason.
Second, Councillor Cleary.
Mason, seconded by Councillor Cleary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Calls for declaration of conflict of interest. Correspondence, Mr. Clerk.
No correspondence has been received for any of the items on today's agenda.
Maybe not to you. Okay, no correspondence, official correspondence. We will then move petitions. Anybody? Don't know if anybody has any petitions. This is a very special meeting. I just want to say at this point, since we've added this meeting, it's really about one issue and one in-camera issue, which is closely connected to the first. We try not to add items to these special meetings since people don't originally have them in their calendar. I want to thank all councillors for being available. Just a sound check. Councillor Purdy, have you been able to join us by virtually? Councillor Purdy? All right. We'll keep working on that. Okay, we'll move to reports. Item coming from the CAO 5.1.1. Jacques, I think we have a presentation on this. I'll turn it over to you to introduce who's going to do. Is it going to be Jill or who's going to do the presentation?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, councillors and everyone watching from afar. Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The presentation will be delivered by Jill McClellan and supported by Kate Green and Eric Luchik and Kelly Denty. I do want to say before Jill kicks it off that I'm incredibly proud of the team that pulled this off. Jill and Kate particularly worked long hours, including all week, pretty much all weekend, to finalize this report. And the work that the not-for-profits did with us leading up to this day was exceptional. So there's a lot of engagement. This is not the end of the story, clearly. We're recommending 3 proponents to be funded through this rapid housing initiative. There are many other projects that we've uncovered and have had conversations with, as you can tell by the report, that we will want to continue to work with, along with them and the CMHC and the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the private sector as we move forward to create more affordable housing opportunities for folks who need it within HRM. So this is just the beginning of this exercise. And I must say thank you very much to the federal government for launching this program and allowing us the opportunity to participate in it. And I'll pass it over to Jill. Thank you.
Great, thank you. As noted, my name is Jill McClellan. I'm a planner with regional planning with our Planning and Development Department. And as noted, I'm here today to discuss the investment plan, which will be part of the Rapid Housing Initiative. And this would be part of the contribution agreement that Council approved to sign last meeting. Next slide, please. So to provide a bit of background, the nonprofit and charitable housing sector in HRM is composed of approximately 1,250 units that are owned and managed by 50 registered nonprofit or charitable housing organizations. Housing is provided in the form of group homes, transitionary housing, recovery houses, co-ops, and housing geared towards low to moderate income. Well, over the past decade, there's been little expansion on the nonprofit and charitable housing stock. There has been renewed investments through the National Housing Strategy and the province's 3-year action plan. As part of the National Housing Strategy, on October 26th, the federal government announced $1 billion towards the Rapid Housing Initiative, and $8.7 million was allocated specifically to HRM. As the name of the funding notes, municipalities are expected to move very quickly with allocating funds to specific projects. And as such, on October 30th, HRM put out a call of expressions for interest. Housing organizations were given 1 week to provide submissions, and we received a total of 16 applications, although 4 withdrew their submissions as details of the project became more apparent. Next slide, please. As the CAO noted, and before we go into the details of the report, we do want to acknowledge that this has been a community-wide effort to place this information in front of Regional Council today. So we want to specifically thank all applicants who worked on their submissions. We appreciate there was a lot of work that needed to be put into providing these submissions. And this was all done on the side of their desks, on top of their regular duties. So it's really, really appreciated. We also want to thank specifically representatives from CMHC, specifically Dave McCullough, Gillian Bedreau, Keith Kelly, and Stephen Armica. They were really helpful in answering all of our questions and meeting with us pretty much at a drop of a hat. Same goes with the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing representatives. They were also very helpful, very, very good to meet with us at short notice as well. And we'd specifically like to thank Stefan Richard, Kara Spittle, George Murphy, Tatiana Moore and Fraser, Sharon Fraser, and Nancy Baroni. Next slide, please. So to provide an overview of the details of the funding, we'll discuss that over the next couple of slides. So to be eligible for funding, developments must bring new units to the housing market. So this can be in the form of the construction of modular units, the conversion of a non-residential building to a residential building, or the renovation of an existing residential structure that has been uninhabitable, so it's currently not lived in. Costs must be associated with construction, and they can include the acquisition of land, but cannot be used for operating costs. Next slide, please. Projects funded under the Rapid Housing Initiative must be for permitted housing, so tenure must be for at least 3 months or more, so shelters are not included. They must be complete within 12 months and occupied by March 2022. They must target those who are homeless, who are at high risk of being homeless. We were further encouraged to prioritize projects that were targeted towards women or urban Indigenous people. The conditions of the funding also require housing to provide affordability for 20 years. So that means no more than 30% of one's total income can be spent on the housing. And new developments must exceed building code accessibility requirements by 5%. So it's important to note, well, this is stressed towards affordability. There is also an importance on accessibility as well. And it was also noted that new developments must also exceed energy efficiency requirements by 5% as well. Next slide, please. So just to go over council's role today. Council is being asked to select the projects for the inclusion of the investment plan. So the investment plan is due back to CMHC before November 27th, 2020, so in a couple of days. And during this regional council special meeting, staff will provide a review of the submission process, the overview of all project submissions, review of recommended projects, and discuss financial aspects of the selected projects. So in the review of the submissions, as noted earlier, the call of submissions went out October 30th with a deadline of November 6th. So staff worked with local CMHC representatives and representatives from the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing to evaluate the proposals. Submissions were prioritized based on target populations being served, the ability to meet deadlines, so that preliminary plans had already been developed or that it was a conversion, that the applicant owned the property and that current zoning or permitted uses. That the current zoning would permit the use. The applicants also must have shown experience in providing an affordable housing, and the total funds, we also looked at the total funds requested and the cost per unit. So staff identified a short list of projects on November 12th, and shortlisted proponents were asked to provide details on long-term operational costs by November 18th. Next slide, please. So the next 3 slides provide an overview of the 12 submissions that were evaluated based on the aforementioned criteria. So boxes identified with the color green met the criteria of evaluation, while those in yellow did not. So I'll just provide a quick overview of who the applicants were. So Adsum Women and Children, they provide housing, including shelters, transitionary housing, and permanent housing, serving women and children and trans persons at risk of homelessness. The Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center, they provide housing, programming, and support services towards urban Indigenous people. The North End Community Health Association, they are a well-established hub in the North End community and offer primary care, pre- and postnatal care, dental services, nutrition, social work, mobile outreach, and housing first outreach, mental health walk-in programs, and advocacy. And we'll discuss a little bit more about these proposals in later slides. Other proposals included a project from the Cloverdale Court Work Society and Elizabeth Fry Society of Mainland Nova Scotia. This was a joint project. Both groups provide housing and advocacy and support for women in the criminal justice system. This project would have been aimed at providing housing for women where housing is required as a condition of meeting bail. Next slide. The next submission was from Dartmouth Not-for-Profit Housing Society. They have 38 years of experience in providing housing in and around Dartmouth and have a diverse housing stock with predominantly 3- and 4-bedroom units. They were looking at developing 4 units aimed at families and seniors. We also had Lake City Works. They were proposing the development of tiny homes over several properties in HRM. Lake City is an established nonprofit in Dartmouth who works to support people living with mental illness, including employment-related programming and wraparound services. We also received a submission from YWCA, and they've been providing housing and support services for women and children throughout HRM for over 100 years. Their project would have been focused towards senior women who were former sex workers. We also had a submission from Welcome Housing and Support Services. Welcome Housing provides housing and support services in Halifax and Dartmouth, and are mainly focused towards individuals who are homeless who are at risk of homelessness. They were proposing a redevelopment of an existing building in Halifax. Next slide, please. We also received a submission from the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia, also known as AHANS. They're an advocate for affordable housing throughout Nova Scotia. They conduct research, provide education and consulting services to support the sector's various service providers, and they were hoping to develop townhouse units targeted towards families. We also received a proposal from Acoma Holding Incorporated. Acoma is currently in the process of developing a master plan community for the former lands of the Home for Colored Children, and their proposal included funding 4 units as part of their overall development. Rooted Communities also provided a submission. They're a new organization hoping to develop a tiny home community targeted towards those experiencing homelessness. And then we also received a submission from Homes for Heroes. They're a group that's based in Calgary, and they're hoping to develop a tiny home community for veterans transitioning to civilian life in Halifax. Next slide. So it's important to note that while staff only were able to recommend 3 of the projects, the majority of the submissions are strong projects, and staff hope to continue to work with the nonprofit housing organizations to bring more of these projects to fruition. There is the ability for applicants to apply through the Rapid Housing Initiative project stream. This is where projects will be received throughout Canada and will be based on the target populations they're serving and the overall strengths of the application. The deadline for submissions is December 31st, although it is recommended that organizations do apply as soon as possible. The municipality will also work with organizations that were not considered within the municipal stream to support applications. So again, we will continue to work with organizations to apply through this project stream. We also do, as the municipality, have the opportunity to request additional funding through the project stream. However, these projects will need to still complete nationally. And then there are other sources of funding that these projects may qualify for, such as the CMHC Co-Investment Fund. And so staff will continue to work with the province and CMHC to identify the opportunities for these applicants. Next slide, please. So based on the submissions, staff recommend that that there be 3 projects considered in the investment plan. This includes Adsum Women and Children, Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center, and the North End Community Health Association. Both Adsum Women and Children and the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center are focused on the target population of women and urban Indigenous people, and the planning for both of the projects is already well underway. The total value of these projects was just under $7 million. So with the remaining funds, it was decided that that we could use the remaining funds to fund the proposal for the North End Community Health Association. This project was selected given its focus on the African Nova Scotian community. And further, the cost per unit compared to the other projects was on the lower end. And since the project is a renovation, there's more comfort that the project can meet the timelines required. The total value for the 3 projects is just over $8 million for 52 units. This would leave approximately $500,000 remaining for contingency purposes. So next slide. And I'll go into a little bit more detail regarding each of these 3 submissions. So the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center is proposing the redevelopment of 5853 College Street to develop a 30-bed shelter, 10-room shared housing use, and 7 1- to 2-bedroom units. I will note there was an error in the staff report, so please note the correct address of this project is 5853 College Street. The property is located at the corner of College and Carlton Street in Halifax. It's adjacent to Dalhousie University, the Victoria General Hospital, and several amenities off of Spring Garden Road. Next slide. The funding requested is a little over $2,800,000 for 17 units or rooms. The housing would serve urban Indigenous population and would offer services to help residents transition to permanent housing. They already have approximately 2/3 of the required funding for this development through funding from other levels of government and through their own funds. The main consideration of this project is the current zoning. The property is currently zoned R2 under the Halifax Peninsula Land Use Bylaw. This zone permits a maximum of 4 units. However, as noted, the property is located in an urban area of Peninsula Halifax and abuts a property with the Center 2 zoning under the Regional Center Land Use Bylaw. The Center 2 zone allows for a high density residential zone, and it would allow all the uses that are proposed as part of this development. As such, staff are proposing that council initiate the amendment to the applicable planning documents, which may include the regional municipal planning strategy to allow for the land use policy to allow for the proposed development. I will note that an amendment for a municipal planning strategy, especially to the regional municipal planning strategy, is not regular practice and really only should be considered in unique circumstances for a project of strategic importance to the municipality. While this project is site-specific, the development does have significant regional impacts and will provide deeply affordable housing that will be available to Indigenous residents throughout HRM. Further, the opportunity to access the Rapid Housing Initiative funding is an extremely unique circumstance, and this will help meet Council's strategic priority to support affordable housing. Next slide. So the next proposal is for Adsum Women and Children for the development of 158 Greenhead Road off of St. Margaret's Bay Road in Lakeside. This is adjacent to the Alderwood Village Land Lease community. The existing site this is the existing site of the Adsum Center, which currently contains 4 units and provides transitional housing for women and children. Next slide. Adsum is requesting funding for $4 million for 25 units. They're proposing to expand their existing women's shelter to provide 25 units for women and women with children. And consistent with Adsum's mandate, this housing would serve, as just noted, it would serve women and families and trans persons at risk of homelessness. They've already developed preliminary plans and are proposing a passive solar panelized design that will not only reduce operating costs, but will ensure energy efficiency that is well above the building code. Adsum has been working on this development project since early 2019 and is in the final stages of a discretionary approval process with HRM. And it's anticipated that staff will be bringing this proposed development agreement to Halifax and West Community Council in December 2020 with a public hearing of January 2021. Next slide. The final submission in the investment plan that staff are proposing is from the North End Community Health Association. This is for a renovation of a currently vacant building at 2218 Maitland Street. The property is located in the north end of Halifax off of Gottingen Street and is located across the street from the North End Health Clinic and several amenities. Next slide, please. They're proposing a little over $1,200,000 for 10 rooms. They're proposing the renovation of as noted, of a vacant 4-unit building to convert it into a 10-bedroom shared housing building where units would be targeted towards African Nova Scotians who are experiencing chronic homelessness. The project would also follow the Housing First model. Ownership is the primary risk to proceeding with this development. However, the property owner has expressed interest in selling the property to the North End Community Health Association, and they're the sole party in discussion with the purchase of this property, as it's not on the open real estate market. Next slide, please. So as noted earlier, pursuant to the requirements under the Rapid Housing Initiative, affordable housing developments must provide housing for those who are homeless or who are at risk of homelessness. And they must also ensure that units are affordable. So rent cannot be more than 30% of the household income for 20 years. Next slide, please. So to understand the potential risks of ensuring affordability, staff worked with representatives from CMHC and Department of Municipal Affairs to understand the potential impact on the project operating budgets. So we used examples where situations where where residents would be solely residents whose income was based on income assistance. So what's important to understand is where it can only be 30% of one's income if one is based on income assistance. Rents can only range from $175.80 for a single person to $357.90 for 2 adults with children. While it's not expected that all units of the project will be housed by recipients of the Provincial Income Assistance Program, this was used just to understand what would be the extreme situations, what would operating budgets need to meet in those sorts of situations. So based on the recommended projects and considering variables in the provided operating budgets, it's calculated that potential deficits over 20 years could range from $500,000 to $3 million. That would be approximately $2,500 to $150,000 annually. However, it is important to note that this deficit range is based on an extreme worst case scenario, as projects are suspected to be self-sufficient. And it's unlikely the noted deficit will never reach either amount. Next slide, please. So thank you very much. Staff would recommend that Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to include an investment plan providing funding for the proposed affordable housing developments by the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center, Adsum Women and Children, and the North End Community Health Association into the Rapid Housing Initiative Agreement with the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Next slide, please. It is further recommended that Council initiate a site-specific amendment for 5853 College Street to consider amendments to the applicable secondary municipal planning strategies, including the regional municipal planning strategy and land use bylaws, to allow the development of an emergency shelter, shared housing use, and multiple unit residential building. And 3, that Regional Council authorize the CAO to negotiate and execute contribution agreements and amendments or consents arising from them with recipients to distribute to the CMHC Rapid Housing Initiative funding for the approved projects. Should Council wish, staff can share additional proprietary information specific to each project. However, this would require Council to go in camera. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Recommendations indicate to put the motion on the floor. Just before I go to Councillor Mason, there's a comment that Councillor Hensby's made. Most, if not all, of the other cities that receive money under this fund have housing departments, housing mandates, and we don't. And that's an important point because it shows how much work our folks have done in a short period of time working with CMHC and the Department of Housing to put together a fair panel. We all know a number of the people who've applied for funding, but you know, it would make no sense for me, I don't think, for us to decline the money just because we didn't have a housing department already set up. So I do want to commend the staff for pulling all this together as quickly as they did and putting this in front of us today. So thank you to our team on that. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move the motion. I move that Halifax Regional Council 1 direct the Chief Administrative Officer to include an investment plan providing funding for the proposed affordable housing developments by the Mi'kmaq Friendship Center, Adsum Women and Children, and the North End Community Health Association as further discussed in the staff report dated November 20th, 2020, into the Rapid Housing Initiative Agreement with Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, to direct the Chief Administrative Officer to accept a request for site-specific amendments for 5853 College Street to consider amendments to the applicable secondary municipal planning strategy, including Regional Municipal Planning Strategy, RMPS, and the Land Use Bylaws, LUB, to allow the development of an emergency shelter, shelter housing use, and multiple unit residential dwelling at 5853 College Street, and 3, authorize the Chief Administrative Officer to negotiate and execute contribution agreements and any amendments or consents arising from them with recipients to distribute CMHC Rapid Housing Initiative funds for approved projects. I so move.
Second. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith, I heard. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So many great projects here, and I think you know, Jillian really hit it on the head when she said, and the mayor earlier, that this has introduced us to the actual ambitions and hopes of all these different groups that we're all so familiar with, and it puts us in a better position to help them all. You know, before I get into the specifics of who we've been asked to approve and why I think we should, I'll say it was interesting to read through the chart of applicants and see some commonalities there. You know, some of them need land. Many of them are proposing clusters of tiny homes that we're already working on. Perhaps at the end, Ms. McClellan can say where that report's at and when we might see it. And I did add up that it's around 30 million bucks. I just did it real quick in my head. It's about $30 million that we're not funding. So we've got 8.7 to put out, but we now know that there's requests of these types for these kind of housing initiatives for the most vulnerable in our community, we need another $30 million more to do that. And we heard their CMHC money will hopefully have some density and bonusing money that can be put in and matched with provincial and federal funding going forward. You know, those I hope all get built over time. But it's great to see these groups that we're also familiar with that represent our districts and are in and out of City Hall all the time to see what they have planned. So I support the recommendation as it is. And I'm not going to speak to all of the ones. I'll speak to the one in my district, and I assume Councillor Stoddard and Councillor Smith will want to speak to the ones that are proposed in their area. And there may be some concern about the fact that the MPS amendment, which is required, and I have a notice of motion at the end of this meeting to make that staff have provided me to get that process started. The reason I'm okay with a rezoning there and considering this use is what that site was up until 3 years ago was a low security halfway house run by Corrections Canada. So that site has had non-standard uses on it for some time, but this is a change from one unpermitted but important institutional use to another. So and frankly, the building's quite old, and you may recall the news stories of Out of the Cold being in there briefly last year, and then a pipe burst and they were all kicked out. That's this building. They're proposing replacing this building. So I support that. I think it's the right place for it. Historically, there's always been hard to house people there who are reintegrating back into the community. This will be, frankly, less impactful than its past use. So I support that. I look forward to bringing that to the community for discussion. And finally, I just really want to thank staff. I've had a couple of meetings with staff, especially Jillian and Kate, who are always hardworking people. Kate Green and Jillian McClellan. And so you take people who are already working arguably at 100%, and you say, now we need you to do this other extraordinary thing, and they did it. And my hat's off to you, because it can't be said enough how hard I know you work to do this. So thank you for getting this done on this timeline, and I ask council to support the proposed choices for funding. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Kent. Can't hear you, Councillor Kent.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you now. Go ahead, please.
The mic keeps turning off, so I'm not sure why after I turn it on. So thank you. I'm happy to support this motion. It's so important. I am particularly pleased with the parameters that were set out for it, but also our acknowledgement of the need to support women, Indigenous people, African Nova Scotian people in these applications. I think that this is good news all around. And I certainly want to commend staff and everyone really involved, all of the stakeholders, for rising to the occasion so quickly when the federal government announced this. So on that, though, I do have a couple of questions, if I could, on the presentation. So am I right in on slide number 12, there's a breakout of the money. So we had 8.659, roughly 2 million, and what we had left, am I reading this right, that what we had left after the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center and Adsum were taken out, we had 1.803, is that correct? And then we distributed the 100, or would be distributing the 1.2 million, which I think you referenced leaves a balance, a contingency, I think you called it, of half a million roughly. And that's correct? How I read that or heard it? Yes.
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So in saying that, I know there was thought there was a requirement that this money be allocated. Now, is allocation of contingency within the regulation there? And the reason I'm asking that is that we also had an application there that really I'm assuming those applications would have built in contingency as well, potentially, in their projects, because we had that Home for Heroes, for instance, was $500,000. So we would have been able to support either that or any of the others in some form. Can you give me a little rationale around how that one came to be, that we are leaving that on the table?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it was a recommendation of CMHC to have money set aside as a contingency. The 500,000 isn't as large as they had recommended, but it's still, they thought would be sufficient for the proposals.
What would happen at the end of those projects if there was surplus left?
Any unused money would go back to CMHC.
Okay, and on the slide that you spoke to around the deficits of those projects that might be at play, I think I saw 25,000 to 150,000 annually. You had noted that there was, I feel like it was kind of brushed quickly. I didn't quite understand what it is that you're saying is how they would mitigate that, because you said they probably won't get to those kinds of deficiencies. Or deficits? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I can expand a bit on it. So we looked at, to ensure that projects could meet the requirement to provide affordability for 20 years, we looked at their operating budgets. We did apply rental income, but based on as though all of their residents or all of their clients would be on income assistance. We don't think that will necessarily be the case, but we want to just show the worst case scenario. And so that's where those numbers came from. If we wanted to get more specifically, we would have to be sharing private information from the applicants, and we could do that in camera if council wished to. However, based on the operating budgets that were provided by the applicants and through understanding how there can be variables in operating budgets, that's how we came up with the numbers that were shown on that slide.
Okay, great. Thank you. As long as you're satisfied, I would trust that we wouldn't need necessarily, certainly not for me to need supplementary report on that. So, okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, colleagues. I have to, again, as many folks did, give a big shout out to our staff who made this happen on a turn of a dime. I know it meant them prioritizing this over other projects to make this happen. So again, all the staff who've been involved in it from planning and beyond, thank you, because this is a great news story. I'll speak to the one specific to me, but as mentioned, all three organizations I'm familiar with and have worked with them in the past, and to be able to support the North End Community Health Clinic in their potential work, as long as council supports this, I'm pleased to support it. I had a discussion with them yesterday, and they did say, just for folks who might be wondering, in principle, they have an agreement with the property owner of the house. So as long as council approves this, they have an agreement to sell. So that is one piece that was mentioned in the staff report, that it could be a risk, but they pretty much have an in principle agreement that if council does agree, then the sale of the property is gonna happen as soon as it can. So I just wanted to make sure that was out there, and I would also be remiss if I didn't put on my FCM hat in the remembrance of Uncle Bill Karsten, past president. This past week, I've been part of the group who's been working in lobbying, advocating with MPs and ministers in the federal government around many aspects of what we as FCM want to see happen moving forward. But one of my roles was talking about the affordable housing, homelessness in the RHI, the Rapid Housing Initiative, and FCM is asking that this get expanded onto municipalities, expanded to $7 billion in 24,000 units. And part of it when I was speaking was understanding like municipalities like ours, who thankfully were able to get the money out, but don't have the resources to be able to turn it around quickly every time. So part of that expansion should also include looking at municipalities and what resources they have, and timeline shouldn't be the same for every municipality depending on their resources they have in their city. So hopefully that in the most of the discussions has been supportive, and I hope that they do expand it as time goes. And there's some other things around the housing that looks supportive as well coming from FCM. But overall, I support this. Really look forward to hearing other comments and hope that we can see more of this work happening in the future, and we are in showing that we do have a piece of the pie when it comes to affordable housing. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Austin.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, colleagues. And a big thank you to our staff for the heroics in terms of turning this around in such short order. I mean, for a municipality that doesn't have a housing department, that really is, it's been kind of one or two people working on this to go through this exercise in such a short timeline within government is really exceptional work. And also to all the nonprofits out there, including the ones who applied and were unsuccessful, to gather up an application and put it into this program too on their end. Also, I mean, this was, everyone had to drop pens, right? The timelines on this were really something else. So kudos to all. The question I had concerns what the follow-up from here is, because I think, you know, to Councillor Mason's point that there's, you know, another $30 million out there of a potential investment in nonprofit housing. I think with an actual timeline for some organizations, they just were not simply able to respond to something that they only had a week and a half, you know, I think it was a week's notice to reply to. So the actual potential for projects out there is probably much greater. There are probably groups that simply could not apply to this given the timelines, the rapidness of it. So what does the follow-up work from here look like in terms of working with some of the groups that put in applications and were not selected under this? Like, do we have a plan in the bureaucracy to work with them?
Through the mayor to the councillor. I mean, so any of the projects that are eligible for the project stream, we will continue to support to hopefully they can be successful through the project stream. Otherwise, you know, there are other programs such as the co-investment fund through CMHC that will also support any of these applications that would be eligible to support access through funding through that. And I'm also hoping to take these projects to the Housing and Homelessness Partnerships to kind of discuss with the larger group, like how can we get these projects moving forward as well too, because yeah, as you noted, there's a lot of strong projects there, and it would be really great to see them all find success.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly spotlight the Dartmouth nonprofit housing. I had no idea we owned those lots on Creighton Avenue until this report came forward, and so we just have the experience at True North Crescent. Even if we're not providing direct project support, if we can get land into someone's hands who wants to build nonprofit housing, I mean, that location's on transit. There's a school right up the street. There's the mall, so there's employment opportunity. I mean, it's really such an ideal spot in terms of being able to house people. And then I did want to say, and this is more for, I was appalled when I had the conversation with Elizabeth Fry Society regarding what they're trying to do. I mean, it is appalling as a society that we are using our jail in Burnside as a homeless shelter, because there are literally no place to release people to. Like if you're on, you might be able to get bail, but there are people who are sitting in jail because there's nowhere for them to go. We have no place to put them, and that is a society that is just so utterly wrong. So I mean, I think we definitely. I don't want to see. This is such a good news day. I don't want to see this drop here. I think there's a lot more potential to do good, especially with the density program. So thanks again for all the hard work.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hensby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And as you alluded to, we don't have any housing department or administrative framework to roll this program out. So kudos to the staff and short notice to do what they did. A Herculean effort, and I know there's plenty more applications and processes to go. I'd like to know in regards to the plan amendments and stuff. With this accelerated timeline, will we have to perhaps bypass or minimize the public participation portion that we normally have with any land use planning amendments? Just kind of curious how we're going to tighten up that timeline, not to delay these projects any. And also like to know what kind of partnerships we kind of seek out there. Like I'm thinking of the Nova Scotia Home Builders Association could be working with a lot of these not-for-profit groups and helping to deliver housing projects. Or perhaps it could be some corporate sponsors out there willing to talk to us, like Kent Homes or Home Depot or Rona. You know, these are big companies out there that will be supplying a lot of materials, but perhaps they'd like to be associated with some of these projects in a corporate citizen way. So, and I'm also curious with the $576,000 left over that we have from these three projects, just over $8 million. We have $806 million from CMHC. So where does this last 576? That's just contingency fund. If there's anything that runs over budget on any of these three projects, we have that money available, or does it go back to Central Markets of Housing without being utilized? So I'd like to have some clarification on that, because I've also notified staff of some property opportunities in North Preston that's right on a transit route, right on Central Water and Central Sewer, just down the hill from an elementary school, has all the accrements and attributes you want to have in a housing opportunity, and it's there for the taking in collaboration with the Preston Housing Fund. So I want to make sure that we don't miss out on other opportunities that are out there if we have money available in the program.
Jill, do you want that?
Sure. Yeah. So through the mayor to the councillor regarding the expedited municipal plan, or the expedited plan amendment. We will be submitting a public participation program to council. Should council approve to initiate the requested plan amendment, we will be providing a public participation program to council that will outline the details of the proposed public participation. So that might be something that might be better discussed at the next council meeting when the report is out. And then further regarding having partnerships with Home Builders Association or construction groups. Due to the timeline, I don't think there wasn't a ton of time to be able to kind of facilitate that as part of this this application process. But I agree that those are great opportunities to kind of get some of these projects moving forward. So definitely appreciate that recommendation. And then regarding the remaining funds that are not allocated to the three projects, it stays to be used as a contingency fund. So HRM would hold on to that money. And then any money that's not used at the end of the year would be returned to CMHC. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Jacques?
I just wanted to reinforce what Jill was saying. We have a little better than $8 million worth of projects, and those, while there may be some contingencies built into their projects, they didn't have a whole lot of time, right? So I think this is very prudent that we hold off on a little bit of money to help the three proponents successfully land their projects without having to incur any additional debt or any other form. So, we'll certainly hopefully make good use of that money. But given the time and the I would say probably the lack of time led to probably not the regular due diligence you would do on an actual costing. In that time frame, that this is very prudent that we would use that money for that contingency. And certainly, as there will be more projects coming forward, and we'll be working with the proponents, and we'll be identifying sources of funds for that. And if on the Eastern Shore in your areas, Councillor Hensby, in any other area, if people have projects, we encourage them to bring them forward, and we'll work with them and with council to try to land that with some support from CMHC and the province. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacques. Thank you, Councillor Hensby. Councillor Russell?
Thank you very much. Again, echoing what everybody else has said, this is a fantastic amount of work done in a ridiculously short period of time. Thank you very much for the analysis that you have done, for putting the information together, for making it as comprehensive, and for doing as much as you could to make sure that we get the most bang for our buck. I do have a few questions around some of the bits of clarification. For Adsum House, it is an expansion of what they're currently offering. They currently have 4 units. Are they moving to 25 new units or 21 new units? So are they moving to 25 units or 29 units?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it would be 25 units total, so 21 new units.
21 new units, okay. And for the North End Community Health Association, yes, it is a risk that they don't own the property. And this is one of the reasons that we normally discuss property acquisition and disposal in camera, so that we don't give people a heads up about what we're doing related to any of the strategy or anything else that we're using for this. I see that as a risk, and I'm wondering if, presumably, the purchaser and the seller have come to some sort of financial agreement, but upon hearing what we are proposing today, there is a risk that that would change. They would say, you know, 200,000 now. Oh, wait a minute, it's $2 million. Do you know if there's a second property that might be available that the North End Community Housing Association, or sorry, Community Health Association would be considering, or is this the only property on the books?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the North End Community Health Association has not identified any other additional properties in case they're unable to purchase this property, but it's my understanding is there's informal agreements to purchase this property.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Until there's a signature, I've always assumed that there is no signature, so I continue to see that as a risk. About the contingency, if we don't use that contingency fund for the contingency fund, and I'm not sure who this question goes to, I like Councillor Kent's idea of the Homes for Heroes, and I'm just wondering if we would be able to use that extra 500,000 and change dollars to support the Homes for Heroes at $500,000 if the rest of the pieces were in place. If there was a plan and the zoning was in place and there was some ownership, would we be able to take advantage of those funds?
Through the mayor to the councillor, there may be the ability to negotiate that through the investment plan with CMHC. This would require further discussions with CMHC, although I will note, as the CAO did already comment on, it is really important to have a contingency plan, because due to the short timelines of this process, construction budgets may not be there may need to be room for some flexibility, but if we wanted to keep that as a potential reserve, that would be something we'd have to consider with CMHC. I don't know if my colleagues have anything to add on that.
Okay, what I'm considering with that is those look and sound like they would be relatively short time frame and relatively low cost to implement. So that could be done 10 months down the road, and we end up taking, even if we have 400,000 left, the Homes for Heroes could be able to leverage that. And the final question is the municipal tax relief. We are proposing 100% tax relief. And we have other groups, other residential housing associations that have 25% and 50% tax relief. And I'm just wondering what the difference is between those so that the other ones don't get 100% tax relief.
Through the mayor to the councillor, I mean, my understanding, and I don't want to speak too much on it, is that there is going to be a look at making sure tax relief is applied in a consistent manner through different housing groups, but that's to be provided in an additional staff report from our community grants people. But one consideration with this one is it's part of the funding requirement that operating costs, or that affordability can be provided for 20 years and that they can meet operating budgets and costs for the 20 years as well too. So providing that 100% tax relief kind of provides that extra buffer to ensure that they can meet that criteria, and also to make sure that the municipality then isn't responsible for providing money back to CMHC should they not be successful for 20 years. So it provides us a little bit more guidance there.
Okay, oh, that's super. Thank you very much.
I may note as well too, just on the Homes for Heroes proposal as well, Homes for Heroes has not yet secured a site, so that's something also to consider too. But that doesn't mean they cannot find a site within the next year. Thank you.
Absolutely, that's why I was thinking of that one at the very end, after they had secured the plans and the zoning and the ownership. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morse.
Thank you. These seem like wonderful projects, and I hope we see more similar types of projects in the future. My question is just around oversight, and I'm wondering if who is responsible for ensuring the projects remain on time and on budget so that we can make the best use of these funds?
Through the mayor to the councillor, as part of the agreement we signed with CMHC, we'll be providing annual reporting on each of the projects. So we'll be asking, well, the third party contribution agreements are still to be established. It's likely that we'll ask those reporting requirements to be done by the third party non-for-profits. That will be reviewed by staff and then sent to CMHC to ensure that it meets their criteria. So there'll be oversight by CMHC and some oversight by staff as well.
If I could just follow up, I mean during the construction phases, because sometimes construction and renovation projects run into unforeseen hurdles. So I'm just wondering if we'll know about that, earlier on.
So during the first year, reporting will be required quarterly. So every 3 months, we'll need to get a status update to know where things are at. And that, again, is required by CMHC. And then once the project is complete, there'll be annual reporting requirements.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Diggle-Gammon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd also add my compliments to the staff for an amazing job. Having run a nonprofit for a long time, I know when money is announced and you say, great, just what we need, and then you see what the timeline is and you freak out for a few minutes figuring out how am I going to get this application in. So kudos to the nonprofits that were able to pull this together in such a short time frame. I absolutely empathize and know how great a job you did. I've also heard from a couple of them and know how supportive HRM staff have been in them being able to get their applications in. So double thank you. One of my questions goes a little bit also to the contingency fund, in that right now the trades are very busy. So sometimes you're going to have cost overruns, you're going to have products that are going to be harder to source and therefore more expensive. So in the 12 months, the contingency fund is very important that those cost overruns, that we do have some money set aside to be able to meet those obligations. I am a little concerned around the 12 months. And so my question would be, again, for those same reasons, the trades are busy. If the timeline, the 12 months, they're 9 months in and find out it's going to take 13 months or 14, is there any room on that 12-month time frame?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it's my understanding through conversations with CMHC that there is not flexibility within the 12-month time frame. So again, we would have to support these projects as best as we can to make sure that they meet those timelines.
Great, thank you. And my only other thought was probably on the tax release conversation as well, in that transparency and consistency in how we apply tax relief to like-minded organizations would be really important. So thank you very much, and thank you for what a fantastic job.
Thank you, Councillor Lovelace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am very impressed. I'm impressed with the nonprofit organizations that were able to come forward so quickly, impressed with staff for moving this forward. It's clear that we have a willing group of people who are there to help those who need help. And the chronic homelessness, in our city is just in a dire situation. So I just wanted to say a round of applause to everyone who's moving this all forward to help those who are in need. And on that note, in regards to the contingency fund and what Councillor Diggle-Gammon has stated, I am concerned, and maybe Jillian, you can just speak to me a little bit about the accessibility of these units. I'm concerned that maybe we are not going to have the number of accessibility units that we need in this situation, and knowing the challenges that can be faced, especially with 2-story and 3-story buildings. Accessibility is just something that I wonder if you could address at this time.
So through the mayor to the councillor, as part of the requirement for the funding, new construction projects, so this would apply to the McMahon Native Friendship Centre and to Adsum, they need to exceed the National Building Code requirements for accessibility by 5%. So they would be the buildings would be more accessible than we would generally require. So I know that's an important consideration of CMHC, that accessibility be included as well.
Okay, awesome. So I guess in that sense, then having that contingency fund is extremely important. Although when I did see the list, I was rooting for Homes for Heroes and thinking if there was a way that we could support them. But maybe in the future, once their plan is formulated a bit more. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cuttle. Can't hear you, Councillor. There you go. No. There you go.
It keeps popping back there. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. As with my other colleagues, I would like to thank staff and the applicants for the quick turnaround on this. As we all know, housing is a major issue in the city, and with these applicants, we'll be looking at having an additional 52 units of affordable and supportive housing in our city, which which is significant. On that note, and in terms of kind of stretching a dollar and understanding better the calculations in the report around the per unit costs, I was just wondering if staff could speak to how that was calculated, in particular with the projects that have already received additional funding for their projects. So, I can see, like, for example, on the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center, it's 17 units, and it was just a direct division of 17 into the funding request, but that they have 2/3 of the required funding already. So I'm just very curious how those per unit costs were calculated, how they were assessed for value for money, and really looking at how can we stretch this $8.7 million as much as we can to get the most units, new affordable units in our city.
So through the mayor to the councillor, we determined the cost per unit. Basically, as you noted there, we took the total units and divided by the amount that they were asking for. We do appreciate in some of the proposals, it included the acquisition of land. In some of the proposals, it may have included a larger piece of property where maybe further development could have happened. But we did just keep it as a simple calculation. And base it on the numbers that the construction cost numbers that the applicants had provided to us as well.
Okay, so I guess that does raise some, questions when you do have a project that's 2/3 funded. How are we providing additional funding to see that project through to completion? And, is there, possibilities of looking at partially funding some of the other applicants? Like, for example, I'm looking at the AHANS proposal, and while they have in their funding for all 37 townhouses, I know we did just sell them land to build this affordable housing project. Is there a possibility of funding maybe 5 of those units as opposed to the 37, or looking at the Dartmouth one, looking at perhaps doing 1 unit as opposed to all 4, or the Homes for Heroes project? So again, I'm just looking at and I appreciate the time it took to turn this around on such short notice, but really, again, my main intent here is understanding that we're getting as much as we can out of this 8.7.
And through the mayor to the councillor, that is something we considered as well too. What would happen if only partial, if projects could only be partially funded, and how could that work? And it's something we kind of discussed back and forth as well. But we're able to settle on to 3 proposals where it was all of the funding that they had requested. If there was a larger deficit, I think we would have looked at partially, possibly providing a partial amount of the funding requested to some of the other parties, but just based on the calculations of the 3 projects, we decided to, and the need for contingency, there was no extra money to be provided.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure how the timing is working on this. Like, is there a time limit?
Yes, you're at about 5 minutes, and you have 5 minutes. But if you have a last point, Councillor, go ahead.
No, that's all right, Mr. Mayor. I'll come back again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Outfit.
You got it wrong the first time. Mike, it's deputy mayor now, Mike.
Yeah, we'll be there by February.
All right, that's the only time I'll ever mention it, and just for fun. So listen, one thing about waiting a while to go today, most of the good questions and comments have been made, but I do want to emphasize, all of you have said, you know, congratulations, Jill and everybody on staff that put this together so quickly, because we don't have a housing department, as you all pointed out. And as Kathy mentioned, and having run a nonprofit myself as well, for these groups to scramble to put together this information, probably a lot of it done by volunteers, is absolutely marvelous. So yeah, I agree with her comments. Anybody who's ever renovated anything, anyone who's ever built anything will probably be quite relieved to hear that we have contingency, because particularly now with shortages of labor and materials, and obviously a pretty good building boom going on in our municipality, I think having a strong contingency plan is a very good thing. So. One thing I wanted to mention is the former deputy mayor did a very good job this morning. I believe it was on Global, talking about all the things that we have done, and it was even before we had done this today, to try and address housing and affordable housing in HRM. At least I thought you did a fabulous job, and today we'll be able to add more to that story through this as well. So, and it doesn't, you know, just me being me, I'll have to say that also we can't take the pressure of the province off the province, because I truly believe that we do need and we will receive at some point inclusionary money, so we can do this in so many more projects and by the experts who build the projects. So anyway, thank you very much, Mayor, and congratulations to all involved, and I'm thrilled to support this.
All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to just take a second myself, just weigh in on this. In terms of the quick history of this, the weekend after the election, I got a call from Minister Ahmed Hussein, who is the Minister of Housing, among other things, saying, Mr. Mayor, this thing that you've been talking about, along with all the other big city mayors, of getting money out the door quickly, is going to happen, and Halifax is going to be part of it. And my first thought initially was, okay, that's great. And then when he gave me the timelines, I said, that's great, but it's going to be very challenging. And he knows that we don't have a specific mandate, but he knows that we can deliver. And the last thing we would want to do is turn it down. And as I've said on a number of occasions, yes, it's challenging, but for all the talk of housing and how long it takes to get housing built, the last thing we can complain about is getting it done quickly. So we've had to deal with this quickly. I called Jacques, and we very quickly put the team together to say, how are we going to do this? It has to be done fairly. There has to be criteria. We have to follow the federal criteria. The other cities that are involved in this are in, I don't know if any of the provinces don't have the housing mandate at the provincial level. Certainly in places like Ontario, BC, Quebec, you know, cities do have an infrastructure on this. We don't. So putting this together, and we were told we had to have a minimum of 28 affordable housing units. Jillian, we're up around 50, 52, perhaps. So we're close to double the number of units with high quality partners. And there's more partners in this report that we could have dealt with, but we had to make the decision. It's amazing the stuff that we're doing these days on all kinds of housing, and this is really very important. And just for those who are watching, this is $1 billion fund, only half of which has been allocated through this major cities fund. There is another 500 million that we can apply for with our partners. So you know, there is nothing in life that's worthwhile that doesn't have challenges. And boy, I'll tell you, our guys just stepped up on this one. I know you know that, but they just stepped up and said, we will put together this group in short order with the province, with CMHC. And while we could all pick and choose, I think we all agree that the work that's been done has been absolutely fabulous. And some people are going to get housing in our city who don't have it now. And it's more than 28, it's 50, it's not where we need to be. But I'll tell you, by heavens, it's a heck of a, it's going to make a big difference. So I'm very excited about it. So thank you again to Jill. Thank you to Eric, to Lucic, to Kelly Denti, to Kate, who I see, Jacques, and everybody else. All right. Are we ready for the question, colleagues?
Question.
Sorry, Councillor Stoddard, did you wish to speak?
You're muted, Councillor Stoddard. You're muted. Can't hear you.
You can see you smiling, but
Sorry about that. I just wanted to speak on the Adsum House Women's Shelter at 158 Greenhead. That's in District 12. Um, 158 Greenhead Road in Lakeside. We're looking at $3,977,700 and 188. I am pleased to support this motion, and as it has been said already, staff did a great job in getting the information to council. In addition to the 21 residential units for women and women of children, which will be a total of 25, the extra bonus is that they will have a solar system designed to increase energy effectiveness. And I think this will be a great addition, and there will be a lot of women and children that will benefit from this site.
thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
All right. Colleagues, ready for the question?
Question.
Mr. Clerk, are you taking us through this?
You bet. So I will start with District Run and looking for Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
An enthusiastic yes to the motion.
District 2, Councillor Hensby.
Affirmative.
District 3, Councillor Kent.
Absolutely, yes.
District 4, Councillor Purdy.
You're muted. Trish, you're muted. Thumbs up.
We just go like this.
We need to get Bud and into Cole Harbor one of these days.
All right. Did you get that, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, that's a thumbs up from District 4.
District 5, Councillor Austin.
In favor.
District 6, Councillor Mancini.
In favor of the motion.
District 7, Councillor Mason.
For the motion.
District 8, Councillor Smith.
For the motion.
District 9, Councillor Cleary.
Yes.
District 10, Councillor Morse.
In favor of the motion.
District 11, Councillor Cuttle.
In favor of the motion.
District 12, Councillor Stoddard.
Muted, Iona.
Darn. In favor of the motion.
District 13, Councillor Lovelace.
Enthusiastically, yes, in favor of the motion.
District 14, Councillor Blackburn.
Voting absolutely yes on the motion.
District 15, Councillor Russell.
In favor?
District 16, Deputy Mayor Oathit.
Very pleased to support. Thank you.
And Mayor Savage.
Indeed, supported. Thank you. I guess that motion carries. Mr. Clerk, thank you all very much. At this point, we are going to go in camera, I think, if somebody wants to so move that we go in camera.
Mr. Mayor, should I do this notice of motion now, or do I have to wait to the next meeting for that?
You can do the notice of motion. Sure, let's do the notice of motion. I didn't realize you had one. Sorry. Yeah, go.
I did have it. And, oh, I know where it is. All right. Take notice at a future meeting of Halifax Regional Council, I intend to move a motion to consider a public participation program for the proposed amendments to the applicable secondary municipal planning strategies, including the regional municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw, to allow for the development of an emergency shelter, shared housing use, and multiple unit residential dwelling at 5853 College Street, Halifax.
Thank you. Notice of motion. Does somebody wish to move to go in camera to discuss our in-camera item? Moved by Councillor Blackburn, did I see?
Yep.
Second? Councillor Stoddard, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, move in camera. So we have to click out and go into a new thing, right? April or?
Correct.
There is an in-camera calendar item for this next meeting. We'll go right in now. Phoebe, how many do we have?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, just doing a count now. Looks like we are missing a couple of councilors. You may have quorum though.
Councillor Russell, I'm going to come to you when the time comes to put the motion on the floor.
I can confirm you do have quorum, Mr. Mayor.
How many are we missing?
Missing Councillor Austin, Cuddle, Lovelace, Morris, Purdy.
Okay, I'm just going to wait a second.
They may be in the later virtual room.
We were in the wrong room. Sorry about that.
There you go.
Okay. Do we have most of ours back now, Phoebe? We good?
Mr. Mayor, just looks like we're still missing Councillor Austin on the CAO.
We were all in the wrong room just now, so I think they're switching over.
Yeah, figure that out.
Go over there and put a message in there.
Councillor Austin.
And this is the one time the Premier started the press conference on time.
And he's definitely an angry bad mode.
Yeah.
Just a note, councilors, that this is streaming live now.
Is the Premier on now?
Yes, he is.
I'm not getting it.
Ada Place is online.
Okay, let's see. Are we live?
We don't have to wait for everybody, do we?
No.
Let's go.
Are we live?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you're good to go.
Okay. All right, Council, we're back in public session, and I'm going to go to Councillor Russell.
Okay, thank you very much. I move that Halifax Council, 1, adopt the recommendations as outlined in the private and confidential staff report dated November 19th, 2020, and 2, release the private and confidential staff report dated November 19th, 2020 to the public once the conditions have been met.
35 of those.
Second, Councillor Cleary.
Seconded by Councillor Cleary. Ready for the question.
Question.
Okay, starting with District 2, Councillor Hendesby.
Affirmative.
District 3, Councillor Kent.
In favor of the motion?
District 4, Councillor Purdy.
In favor of the motion.
District 5, Councillor Austin.
In favor.
District 6, Councillor Mancini.
In favor of the motion.
District 7, Councillor Mason.
4.
District 8, Councillor Smith.
4.
District 9, Councillor Cleary.
Yes.
District 10, Councillor Morse.
In favor.
District 11, Councillor Cuddle.
In favor.
District 12, Councillor Stoddard.
In favor of the motion.
District 13, Councillor Lovelace.
Voting yes.
District 14, Councillor Blackburn.
Voting yes on the motion.
District 15, Councillor Russell.
In favor.
District 16, Deputy Mayor Outhit.
Yes, thank you.
District 1, Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Voting in favor of the motion.
And Mayor Savage.
In favor of the motion, so that motion passes. Thank you, colleagues. We've done notices of motion. Our next special virtual meeting of council is 1 week from today on December the 1st. I'll take a motion to adjourn from District 4.
Adjourn.
Thank you. We're adjourned, colleagues.
All right.